Alright, Francis Ngannou versus Cyril Gane. This has been a relatively tougher fight for me to predict, just because of the equalizer that is Francis Ngannou. He's got the knockout power, like we've never seen. It's such a hard thing for me personally, as an analyst, to calibrate, because it's a matter of, can you take the shot? Because as we saw in Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou 2, Stipe could take a good amount of Francis' shots. Francis was in control of that fight from the beginning. As a Stipe fan, it absolutely abhors me to say it, but I have to speak the truth. I have to say what I see, and I saw from the opening bell, Francis was in control. That was very terrifying for me at the time. You can ask the people I watched it. It was a rough fight to watch for me, because I knew from the get-go, and from the nightmares that I had in the week previous, that the inevitable would eventually happen. Francis Ngannou landing his big shot, putting Stipe down. With that being said, there's the intangible of Francis Ngannou and Cyril Gane being sparring partners and knowing each other in and out, and yada yada and blah blah blah. At the end of the day, it's a fight. Anything can happen. That's what concerns me. That's what makes it so hard for me to pick this fight, because Cyril Gane can do everything right for 24 minutes and 59 seconds, but he can still lose. We saw this in a similar way, but different, with Chael Sonnen versus Anderson Silva. Chael outstruck Anderson on the feet. Can you believe it? In the first match, I couldn't at the time. It was phenomenal. Chael dropped Anderson. Chael landed the ground and pound. He did everything correct. He didn't do a single thing wrong. But Anderson threw up that triangle arm bar, and all of a sudden we've got Ann Still instead of Ann New. For me, it's a similar situation to what we're facing now. Cyril Gane, stick on the outside, pump the jab, pump the leg kick, do everything and anything he wants correctly, and be winning the fight. He can win the fight. He can win 4.5 rounds. He can basically win 5 rounds straight and still lose. It's always been a hard thing for me. I'll personalize it. I picked Chris Daukaus over Derek Lewis. Going a little off track, but you'll understand. I picked Chris Daukaus over Derek Lewis because I thought this is, by the way, after I said I'd never pick against Derek Lewis after the Curtis Blades knockout. I know there was the Cyril Gane thing in there, but I figured Cyril Gane, with the technicality, would win. His technical acumen would win. With that being said, I picked Chris Daukaus because, as a small, fast guy, I always will value speed over power. I was dead wrong. Chris Daukaus stayed in the pocket and got clipped hard against Derek. That power came, and it was more important than the speed. Chris Daukaus could land more strikes than Derek could, but Derek could land more strikes that counted, and that was one, and it was the finisher. Sure, it was more than one. He landed, he accumulated, but it's just that power. It's an intangible. It's hard to measure, which is where it gets me into trouble with Ngannou versus Gane, because I'm picking Cyril. I'm going with my safe bet. I'm going with what I always do. I'm picking Cyril. I feel like he'll either pick him apart from the outside and get the TKO, or more likely he'll pick him apart from the outside, avoid any and all damage to the greatest extent that he can, and get the decision. But Ngannou has to win for literally 1 second for him to retain the title. And that's such a hard thing to pick against, because it's such a hard thing to analyze. Can he take an Ngannou shot as good as Stipe did? Or will he be like the 4 before him before that and crumble? Or will he be like Stipe and take the shots and eventually crumble due to the accumulation and the surprise strikes? I mean, it's all it takes from Francis is 1 shot, which is crazy, and it's hard to predict against, and it's even crazier as a fan watching it, because there's so many intangibles that could happen during the 25 minutes. If it goes 25 minutes, any single second of those 25 minutes, if 1 second of it goes towards Francis, he could land a knockout. But therein lies the problem. The same exact thing was with Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou. of course, there was some intangibles in that fight. Francis wasn't exactly in the right headspace in that fight. Derek Lewis had a bad back. Nothing really happened with it. But you have to ask if this is truly, as we've been led to kind of believe from the sparring footage, if Gane, and I even think we could say with certainty that Gane is a better technical striker. I mean, obviously, he's a better technical in all facets of it. All he has to do is mess up once. If he messes up once, it's over. And it's hard to pick against that. And I just did a spiel on why you should pick against that, why you should pick Francis. I'm picking Gane just because I feel like with the fact that he's been in there before and he's seen the work that Francis has done, he's not going to risk. He's not going to risk a shootout or a shootout situation with Francis. He's going to avoid that at all costs, even if it's an embarrassing running away, hands covering the head, getting to safety. I think he recognizes the danger Francis poses, and he's going to win the title in a very boring, picking apart fashion. And as much as I hate to say it, it's not why I'm super hyped for this fight. One, because there's been hardly any promotion by the company, or particularly by the two fighters, from it. None of them have said anything interesting. I'm not super hyped about the fight, even though I should be. But I deep down, I think everybody's not super hyped about this fight because they figure that Gane is going to be cautious and careful, and it's what's going to win him the day. And I'm among that camp. I could very well be wrong. I won't feel embarrassed or sad or upset if I'm wrong, because it's an intangible. That power is unlike anything we've ever seen besides maybe Derek Lewis, the Black Beast, baby. But I don't know, I'm picking Gane just because I think he'll be safe, he'll be smart. He's not afraid to have boring fights. We saw the Rosenstrike fight. I think it's going to be another relatively boring fight. Francis is going to try to engage with him. Gane's going to back away, keep it at distance, and win a decision. But we'll see. There's only one way to find out, and that's to watch it.